Hi, welcome. On this video, I just want to take a couple minutes to respond to those who look at this system of training and say, well, it's very similar to other systems or what other trainers are saying about describing the process of training. Now, here's the thing. This system really is unique. It's very different. Because it's an original source system, which means that I developed it. So when you look around, you're not going to find any other system, I guarantee it, that approaches training the way that I approach it. And that goes right into this issue of the methodology itself. So the methods themselves, okay, this is a really important point, they speak certain language, okay? How they create change, how they define change at the relational level, right out of the starting gate. That's what makes it different. It totally sets up change differently. So even when I talk about making distinctions between corrective and relational influence, okay, or I talk about what the motivator is, okay, the process itself at the relational level, those are things you're not going to hear anyone else talking that way. Okay, not working within quadrants, not approaching training as a learning-based exercise. Okay, I mean, you're not going to hear trainers talking this way. But that really goes into this issue about the problems as it relates to this issue about response itself and motives and how change sets up. So, therefore, when I talk about how change is defined in the methodology, right at the starting gate, and I talk about this issue of what I define as how it covers off and these gaps that happen through other systems where right away, okay, because of how they build this picture. Because here's the thing, all these trainers, like the majority of trainers, I'll say 99% of all trainers, because that's what it is. They are focused on the picture differently. Okay, you see them launching into incentivizing the dog to build this picture, both balance and so-called pure positive trainers. They both do the same thing. They focus on building the picture through response right away. They don't approach it frame by frame the same way I do. For example, when you see me working off the sit position, okay, beside the person, the dog owner, that's a staging area. Okay, that's not to define the sit the way that all these other trainers do it, and then reward the dog for that position. It doesn't happen that way. So yes, there's a marked difference between how this system defines change. So again, these things are very challenging. But here's the thing: these things are very challenging. These concepts for trainers, okay, I'll lay that out, for trainers who have already invested a certain way of thinking. I want to be clear about that. So, they've already, trained dogs a certain way, and they're looking at appearances differently than I am. Okay, they haven't. I talk about not asking or certain questions. Well, they haven't done it about and then shoving it off. So. Here's the thing. I already know, okay, because of how these trainers approach training and what training is and these issues, I can look at almost any system, okay, with how they approach it and tell you right away there's problems. I know there are. So the issue about seeing those problems or defining what those problems are is problematic, okay, based off this issue of, again, appearances, okay, because there's always a fork in the road here. Just understand. So when a relational change is taking hold or not, I want to make this real important point here. These trainers don't see it, okay? They're not testing the modes of the dog. And here's the other important point. If they really understood the issues, they would be approaching training differently to begin with, okay? That's important. So therefore, these trainers who are approaching as a learning-based exercise, they already have problems. I want to be clear. So again, the important point of this video is just to say, this is an original source system. I developed it. You're not going to find any other system out there like this. And, I define what training is. I talk about these problems. And so the ability to get what I'm saying really comes from shaking loose from how these trainers approach training, or shaking loose from this ideology, this learning-based narrative. But the majority of trainers either won't or can't do it. So, but again, a lot of what I have to say is common sense, okay? When I talk about, and here's the thing too, is you go into my videos, I have lots of videos talking about, showing the methods and everything. So anyone that comes onto my site and says, well, you know, show me this or show me that, I don't have time for it. I mean, I got over 1,000 videos. I have lots of information. And here's the thing about proving it to one person. A lot of times that's just a red herring. That's these people, these trainers, it's the same prove it thing. I have no interest in it. And here's my point. I'll make a point about this. Years ago, no one had to prove anything to me, okay? Because this is how I reconcile people that say prove it. No one had to prove anything to me because I wanted to know the answer. So I was seeking them out. These trainers aren't seeking them out to begin with. So as soon as they use certain words like show me this or show me that, it's a waste of time. I don't have time for it, because you'll waste all the time arguing with these people. And they're at a reprobate level. I want people to understand. So it's not about evidence that way. You can show them 1,000 things. It's never going to prove it to them because they're already sold out to this stuff. They're turned over to it. So, but anyway, not to detour here too much. The point of this is to say my system is an original source system. I developed it. There's no other system out there like it because there just isn't. I already know it. That's just because it's very intentional. It speaks very specific language of change. And if you go in and look at the methodology, look at the phrases I use, how I define this stuff. Again, you won't see any other trainers talking the way I'm talking. I guarantee it. Is going to happen. They'll be non-specific. They'll talk about things about energy. They'll talk about all these different concepts. They have a sense of something, but when you get into the nuts and bolts of it, I'm very specific. So you see these, even the dog's heads turning inwards at certain points, how I frame up change through, I define as these follower moments where influence is taking hold. You'll see all that. I break it all down. So when I help people, they can see it. So that's the amazing thing. When I'm doing this, I'm not just putting out these terms and they're kind of out in the air somewhere. When people are doing my methods, they see it in action, okay? And as soon as they see it in action, they're like, wow, they see it. So, and they can grab hold of it. So it's concrete. It's not just terminology like smoke in the air here. There's concrete stuff going on here where it's very intentional. It's nuts and bolts. Very different. Anyway, that's the long and short of it. Original source system. It's a relational approach. Trainings, I approach it for what it is. I make sure change happens, and I'm focused in on what the problem is, but not just the problem, the solution. So I just don't talk about the problem here. I offer a solution. I show there's a better way to train dogs to make sure that change really happens. So thanks for watching.